the energy that you have to put into your business is unparalleled to like anything we've ever done. I don't care about marathon running or anything like that. You know, entrepreneurship and being an entrepreneur, especially when you have a successful product, it takes like you're a pro athlete in what you're doing. You're like working 14-hour, 15, 16-hour days. You're traveling nonstop. You're raising capital. You're expanding and in a very, you know, fragile time of the business.
You know, what's working out there, we're getting much more into video than we've been in the past. We've been on social media for a long time. We haven't quite made the jump to TikTok yet, but I think that's an area where we're going to go. And yeah, we're really hoping to get that experiential piece back up and running. It's difficult with COVID, but, you know, getting product sampled, getting people trying the product, you know, that's number one for us, and trying to get that back up and running, because, you know, once people try and taste our product, they usually end up buying it. So that's what we're looking forward to.
Right now, I think people are looking for clean ingredients, and the plant-based and sugar-free still, I think, more demanding than ever, especially the plant-based ingredients. And now I think, you know, it's people with I guess the growth of e-commerce, people could actually start comparing products better and better, and then your ingredients and what's inside it. So people are smarter again every year after year, and just making sure we're up to date and making sure we're using the most effective and / what customers are looking for.
But I would say it's like similar to what everyone's saying. Like, you know, you kind of have to follow. I think it's eventual, to your point, JP, that we'll be on TikTok. We've talked about it as a team. It's kind of crazy just see how fast and social media changes. I'm like, you know, I remember a couple of years ago, everyone needed to be on Instagram, Snapchat. I'm like, I haven't heard of Snapchat in forever. I don't even know if it still exists. So I think those type of things, I think more than just kind of, you know, your product itself, it's like the platforms you're on and how you communicate to your customers, that's going to change significantly, and testing out which one makes sense for you. So I love what Jared said about the Hush brand. I didn't know about that, but that's super smart, huge gamble, and definitely paid off for them.
And then in terms of marketing, you know, we're finally seeing things start to open up again, especially, well, maybe not in Alberta right now, but we're slowly getting back to things opening. Sampling is slowly starting to come back. Experiential is slowly coming back, and people are starting to shop and take their time a little bit more in store. And so they're starting to do discovery again in store. So for myself and the agency, it's very exciting because we're finally getting back to some really cool integrated campaigns where you're seeing in-store elements really driving traffic from that store to something virtual back to that in-store purchase through things like QR codes, or through extended engagement with that brand through recipes or things like that, where you're really getting these omni-channel campaigns built out. So that's what I'm really looking forward to seeing more of, and it's probably going to pick up. You'll see it for the holidays for sure, but definitely 2022, it's coming back big.
Yeah, I spoke to it very quickly, but the retailer media network, if you're not buying media from your retail partner today, start. I think they're really thinking about like exactly what we talked about. Like, I want to target people who purchase in my category. That's the best target market. People who, if you're in the cookie dough business, people who buy cookie dough is your target market, right? So, or people that maybe buy adjacent industries that you've identified as relevant. But the retailer media networks are a really exciting trend.
Yes, I think my tactic, I'm gonna hammer that still. So I think the tactic is really to look at your customer experience and be able to even improve it if at that. So, you know, look at where perhaps you're not doing so hot in the customer experience. When you talk about CPG, everyone talks about how great it, like a lot of my founders talk about, I'm going to spend more money on making it taste better. I'm going to give them more choices, and they spend a lot of money on R&D. And the truth of it is, great, you're giving them options in R&D in terms of what product to buy, but at the same time, you still have to make it easy for them to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say a trend is something that we probably have started to see over the past 12 to 24 months. Brands are no longer going to be the only trusted source for their authenticity or their story alone. It's going to be really your customers who are going to convince other customers. We don't believe anymore what companies telling us about them. It's really what our peers are telling us, try this product. So as far as tactics goes, make that part of your strategy. Let your customers be your evangelist, tell everybody else about the product, and create tools that are easy for them to do that, whether it's reviews on your page or whatever. Upload videos of them using your product, but ultimately, I think that's where that's going to go.
Is scrappy is kind of the main way to think about it. You kind of have to balance, making good sound decisions with 10, 20% of the information, fast enough decisions. We after 6 weeks in the market on October 16th, I heard from one of the stores downtown that we were the number 1 and 2 selling bars. Boom, that night, it was employee of 1. That night I went to my little mini board and I said, we're launching 2 more bars, which is $200,000 of the, we'd only raised 400,000 plus my savings. So boom, make that decision. January 15, we were making the 2 new bars, and having 4 bars in January starting to roll out on shelves is what catapulted us to $1 million a month.
I think for a long time, we've, as consumers, have kind of separated human rights and environmentalism, and have almost viewed them as 2 separate things, but they're very connected. Intersectional environmentalism, the health of people and planet go hand in hand. So if you are like an environmental activist, but you don't care about, the human welfare, the condition of people in the supply chain of a particular brand that you might buy, you're not really, seeing the full picture then holistically. So big things for us are really around intersectional environmentalism and talking about both the environmental and the human rights issues that exist in, the category that we are in at Scout, which is seafood. And then kind of as a secondary to that, I think on the consumer side, really being more mindful now of their waste. So food waste narrative, upcycling, how you're really cutting back on waste or, diverting waste streams into other valuable resources. Those are huge trends that we see that we're continuing to talk about.
I think for us, really trying to explain to the consumer, what we do and why we're different, and really sort of explain, a lot of the time you get a lot of there's a lot of recycling programs and there's all this stuff going on that these big companies are doing. And it's not that they're not doing that. It's just that the amount of waste that's really created by them is so great that it doesn't really, it's not, to go to a brand that's smaller, that has more of that wholesome sort of brand and that sort of outlook. I think, to try to explain that to customers too is something that we definitely want to do. And obviously expanding the product line. So incorporating regular coffee, hopefully one day getting into compostable K-cups, and really figuring out how to, develop a brand with a strong product line that matches customer demand.
Do you know what's in your beer? Do you know how this was made? So in a lot of the same ways where you look into what's in your food or your agriculture or your, meat or your fish on the table, but then you just buy a Budweiser, that doesn't make sense. You don't know where the supply chain came from. You don't know how that was made. And so a lot of our, challenge now, and one thing that we're leaning into is that content heavy. How do we educate the consumer on, everything that goes into this? And one of the things we're kind of looking into as well is can you blockchain or have some sort of, transparency in the supply chain of knowing exactly what went into your beer and how it was made, because that doesn't really exist in my current industry. So, we're just taking some of the playbooks of these other industries that have been there for a long time, and we're just applying it to, food and beverage.
It's really having values and sticking to the mission and lining those up. And when those line up, you're going to find that more consumers are going to want to be part of that mission and want to be part of that whole trend. And I use trend only because, 10% of the market is looking at this, and it needs to be 100%. So you guys are warriors, you're doing the right thing, keep at it. And let's make it that every business, including the large CPG brands, have to start focusing on making the change to their packaging and to the way they do things. It can't be small businesses that are taking the impact and making a change. It has to be everyone. So thank you.